Hi guys, I just wanted to do a quick video just to clarify the telemetry data I shared on the previous video. There still seems to be a few guys that have some questions about it. So I've got up on the screen the raw data. We can see columns B and C there. They represent the float fork, and columns E and F represent the no float fork. So E is just the time in milliseconds and F is the displacement in millimeters. And I want you to pay particular attention to row 11 and 10. So if we go 58.14 minus 47.34, that's going to give us a displacement of 10.8 millimeters in a 2 millisecond time period. So we can work out from that that at row 11 the fork is moving at 5.4 meters per second. Now that's what I'm terming as peak velocity. So anything prior to row 11, the fork is accelerating. If you go through and just do the same calculations, and anything after row 11, the fork is actually deaccelerating. So we can go on to the next page, and we can see the full stroke there, so just full compression stroke, and we can see that full displacement was 270.68 millimeters, and the time was 121 milliseconds. So that's going to give us a total average velocity of 2.2 meters per second. So substantially different to what I'm defining as the peak velocity. And the other thing is we can get all sorts of good information out of this data. So we can see that for the no float fork it reached peak velocity in 22 milliseconds, and obviously it did it in 58.14 millimeters of displacement. And we can do the same thing for float fork. So if you just go to row 39 and 38 for the float fork, we can see 119.13 minus 101.03 is going to give us 18.1 millimeters. Again, it's in a 2 millisecond time period. So we can just see there that at row 39, the fork is moving at 9.05 meters per second. And again, we can see all the details. We can see that, it was 119 millimeters of displacement before it reached peak velocity, and it was 83 milliseconds in time. And we can do the same thing with the total average. So the total average was 267.5 divided by 138 milliseconds. So that's going to give us average velocity for that compression stroke of 1.938 meters per second. So although float fork had a substantially higher peak velocity, the average velocity was just a little bit lower. So like I said, we can see quite a bit of detail. We're using $300 worth of pretty basic equipment and some simple programming, and we're seeing detail down to 2/1000ths of a second, so quite a bit of detail. And we can just see, like as I mentioned, obviously we know force is directly related to velocity, so we've got two completely different tunes producing two completely different velocity profiles, which then means that these forks are producing very different force profiles. And I know I still get a bit of backlash about this stuff, because I think the main reason for that is that if it really comes back to being this simple about using a bit of simple equipment to basically get an indication of the force profile, people will be offended. It's just the reality of the situation. But for example, you look at float fork, we can see that it builds its force very late in the stroke. And float fork, my experience from riding that is it's that typical harsh fork. We in the industry we define it as mid-stroke harshness, and from that force via velocity graph, like that's all you got to do. We just relate the dyno data back to the telemetry. We can see that indeed float fork produces force very late on in the stroke, what you would define as mid-stroke harshness. So I think this stuff's really important to consider. I think it all ties back to the pressure balancing, because obviously a damper that's well pressure balanced is going to build up force quicker. So it's going to reach that peak velocity faster, and obviously in less displacement, and that's going to come back to having a faster wheel response, more traction, all those benefits of pressure balancing. So like I say, I definitely think it's something to consider. Make of it what you will, draw your own conclusions, but yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.